So when we're talking Big 12 teams going into 2023, I think the Texas Longhorns are one of the most interesting teams to talk about for several different reasons. If there was ever an opportunity for them to win the Big 12 before the move to the SEC, this is it. But one of the biggest questions I've heard from Texas fans, how do we replace DeMario and Overshone? And the question might be, will a five-star be able to do it? Jay, as always, glad to have you with me. Tell the people where they can find your stuff before we dive into this.
Yeah, Jay Smith, Unfair Sports. Just search for me on YouTube and wherever podcasts are downloaded, listen to. Thanks, Todd, for having me as usual. This is gonna be a fun conversation, especially
Yeah,
because this is a rival.
yeah, man, this is going to be a lot of fun. And look, Texas last season, they had a lot of ups and downs, but when they're clicking, it looks like a team that we have got to take note in, certainly when we look at the talent. And one can only imagine what it would look like if DeMarvian Overshone was still there. But one thing we have to acknowledge about Steve Sarkisian in Texas, and I know people are going to comment, but they've always recruited well. You're right, they have always recruited well, but they're recruiting differently, and that's important. They recruit to need. And they had a need at that inside linebacker edge position, and they may have found a really dangerous player. Now, it might not shock many
Ooh.
people because he was a five-star, and people have the expectation that that's going to hit the ground running. That's not always the case. It could be the case with Anthony Hill, five-star out of Denton Ryan High School in Denton, Texas, where I currently sit, goes to Texas. And Jay, we've talked about this so many times, especially in the green room. Watching that Texas spring game and see him be flipped inside, then lining him up outside the tackle and asking him to attack like an edge, seeing him do it and be proficient at it, that said a lot. What were you thinking when you were watching Anthony Hill make his debut?
Then I need him to transfer. It would be a great idea for him to go ahead and hop in the portal and just leave right now because it's just not going to work out for him. No, all jokes aside, he looks like a monster and he looks like another line of Texas linebackers that's going to show up and terrorize other opposing quarterbacks. And like you said, he's able to play at the linebacker spot. He can go over to the edge and rush. You basically just tell him attack and he's going to go. And he has that intelligence out there, that cerebralness out there at his position where you can almost put him anywhere and you feel safe. He's already built like a college player that can start day one. And my anticipation is he's going to have to start day one. I mean, he's one of the freshmen out there, but the good thing is they've got two other seniors at the linebacker position, and Jalen Ford as well as David Gabinda.
Yeah.
How you pronounce his last name? Having, of course, your veterans out there and then bringing in Anthony Hill, they're going to be able to move him around the field like crazy. And I do think that he's probably going to be one of the big showstoppers as a freshman and one of those players that is not going to make it past his third year. He's going to pro.
Oh, I think so. And look, whenever we talk about this, even if it's a situation where he's coming in packages, his presence will make everybody there better. He has that ability.
Mm-hmm.
He's the type of guy that when you hear these coaches say iron sharpens iron, this is what they're talking about. Bring in a guy like this where we have all these linebackers who have been here. Let's let them compete against him, where it's going to make Anthony Hill better, but it'll make these guys better as well. That's the environment you're trying to cultivate. And this is the number one linebacker in the nation. Now, Texas, they had a really good recruiting class last year. They got a lot of number one guys at their respective position: quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker. Good class to have, and especially with Anthony Hill. Would you be surprised to see Anthony Hill take the reins and really be a turning point for that Texas defense, really be a player that they start to rely on as a true freshman? Or do you think it's going to be more of a package player and grow as he continues on?
Oh, no, I see him out there every single snap that they can possibly have him out there. He is one of those players that's big time enough that he will be impactful day one. Look, seeing him, like I said, he was rated the number one linebacker for a reason. And you always got to remember when it comes to five stars and top rankings that, you're going to have those players that aren't going to make it. No, he's one of those that showed, even going into the spring game and everything, he's one of those players that shows that he's going to go out there and show out day one. His talent from high school was just off the charts. And seeing him go into this Texas lineup, it's going to be tough for them to try to find a way to not play him. Let's put it like that. It's going to be hard to even give him rest just because of how talented he is and how much of a motive the guy has. He's one of the few players on that team that I'm just like, yep, I would love for him to go ahead and just transfer tomorrow and just, it'd be awesome. Just go to like, I don't know, the other school that you almost went to, like Texas A&M or something. Just go away from Texas. I don't want to see you every single year for the next 3 years.
Go to Ohio State. Go to the Big Ten, because Texas and Oklahoma, y'all are coming to the SEC. I need them in the Big Ten. Because this, Jay, I completely agree with you. Like, all jokes aside, though, this is a very exciting player. I mean, we were messaging Steven and Nick in the group chats watching the spring game, like, oh my gosh, this kid looks
Who's
good.
that guy?
Yeah.
Take him out. It's funny because watching Anthony Hill makes me think about watching in the bowl game Clemson, and you saw this big giant dude all over the field making hits, tackles, getting knockdowns. You're like, who the heck is this 6'7"? What is he? Linebacker? Safety? What is he? Oh, Isaiah Simmons. Who is this Simmons kid? Like, I've heard his name, but he does not look real. And that's kind of, to me, how I felt about watching Anthony Hill move around. It's like, he doesn't look real. It doesn't look like a real person on the football field that legally should be on the football field. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, this is it. And, one of the things I want to go ahead and get this down in video, because we'll come back to this. I think you and I need to revisit this past recruiting class, because I think there's a few cats out of it. And granted, there are every recruiting class. I mean, you look at Anthony Hill, you watch him in that spring game, his body. If I lined up the Texas defense and I scrambled the numbers so that nobody knew who was who, nobody would point at him and say true freshman. There's not one person in the nation that would have pointed at Anthony Hill and said, that's a kid that should be going to his AP bio class. There's not one. He looked like a senior. That's terrifying, right? Jackson Arnold, they had the picture of him next to the other quarterbacks. There's not one person, if I scrambled all the jerseys, put the visor on the helmet, there's not one person that would point at him and say true freshman. Caleb Downs for Alabama. There's not one person who would have pointed at him. Justice Haynes, that's a true freshman. This past class, man, there are some dudes all over the
physical
nation.
Physical specimens really showing up in the last couple of years. And it's crazy. It's crazy, scary how we're starting to see about 2 to 3 of them every single year players. You're like, oh, you're like 30, right? You've been in an NFL program. Good God.
I mean, my goodness.
Good God.
And that's also an interesting thing. I'm not saying Anthony Hill will be a Harold Perkins, but Texas fans have just watched a team have a need at linebacker and see, hey, the young guy can come in here and hold his own. I'm not projecting any linebacker to come in as a true freshman and do what Harold Perkins did, because that's unbelievable stuff, right? I don't want to hold anybody to that standard. Be Anthony Hill. But it just so happens to look like Anthony Hill. Being Anthony Hill is going to be more than enough to get the job done. So
exactly.
I'm looking at this, man. I'm super stoked for Texas. They play Alabama week 2, and I think we're going to see a healthy dose of Anthony Hill. And quite frankly, man, I'm excited for it. I was reading on Twitter today, they were saying that PK has some packages with him at edge to be able to just get him everywhere. I just can't wait, man. There are certain players, Deshaun McCullough for Oklahoma, where it's just like the season needs to get here because I need to see this player in this defense do what they do. I just can't wait. Anthony Hill.
Agreed. This is the year, as we've talked about ad nauseum with them. This better be a 10-win season for Texas. There's no excuse with the talent that you have and the schedules you have set up. Not really leaving the state of Texas, but like with once, you need to get out there and show us something. And it's time to make it happen. I expect it this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we've talked about this on the SEC Connect. We've talked about this on my show. We've talked about this so many times. I think 10 wins is more than fair for Texas. I think they expect to win the Big 12, and I think they should when you look at the team they have, the talent they return. I think they'd be the odds-on favorite. But I'm really interested in hearing from all of you. You know, Jay and I, we talked about Anthony Hill. Give us a name you're looking out for on that defense. I'm sure you can give us several. But then let me know what you're thinking about the Anthony Hill. I know you have to be excited. And then finally, let us know your expectations for the Texas Longhorns. Jay, as always, where can the people find all your great content?
Just search for me, Unfair Sports. I'm always there talking about recruits, talking about just college football in general. We love to have you. Thanks, Ty, as usual.
Absolutely. Until next time, see you.